Welcome to Free Mama TV, where we help you start, grow, and scale your virtual business. Today, we're going to be talking about a super important aspect of running a successful virtual assistant business, client onboarding. As a virtual assistant or VA, your client onboarding process is the first impression you make on your clients, and it sets the tone for your entire working relationship. In today's video, we're going to give you all the advice you need to create a warm, friendly, welcoming, and professional client onboarding experience that will help you build long-lasting relationships with the people you work with and be truly prepared to serve your clients at the highest possible level. And the first step to creating an effective client onboarding process is to make sure you have a clear process of everything that you actually need to do before you get started. Now, I'm actually going to share with you my client onboarding checklist. It's just in a Google Doc, but you can also put this into a platform like Asana or ClickUp, a true project management software. But before we do that, I want to go over the goals of why you would have a checklist to run you through your process every time you're onboarding a new client. The first is project management or having a workflow plan. In other words, you understand what needs to be done or what you actually need to have access to in order to be successful. Now, as a virtual assistant, this might vary from client to client, depending on the software they use, but by having some sort of plan in place and knowing how you're actually going to get access to those software programs, you're going to be set up for success. The second reason you need a checklist or a process is for my three favorite words in the English language, the healer of all relationship struggles, from your marriage to your children to your client relationships: communication, expectations, and boundaries. You need a communication, expectation, and boundaries plan. You need this because you need to understand your goals. What does the client view as successful? How do they know when you've done a job well done? And how will you know that you are actually impressing your client? It's also important because you need to know how you can ask for feedback. Where do you go to ask for questions? How are you going to give them regular updates about the progress of your work? And how will you know when to make adjustments as needed? Are you meeting monthly, weekly, every day? How do you talk? It's really important that you decide these things up front. The third reason you need a checklist is because you need to know your payment terms. You need to be on the same page about how you're getting paid, when you're getting paid. Now, sometimes we talk about this on a sales call, but it's really important to have this explicit dialogue so that there's no weird questions, about cash flow or when you're sending the invoice or when they're paying or how you're being paid. All of those different things need to be discussed upfront as soon as they sign the contract. And last but not least, I don't know about you, but I do business with humans. I love my clients and students, and it's really important for me to do something that I also teach and I also practice called putting a bow on it. Now, at the Free Mama, this just means exceeding people's expectations, and not just with your work as a virtual assistant or freelancer, but also in your relationship with them. And if you don't have any time getting to know them, or you're not asking them questions like, when's their birthday? Or, how do they feel appreciated? Things like that. Then you're not going to have the information you need to put a bow on it and make sure that you have a super solid personal and professional working relationship. Okay, here's that client onboarding checklist I told you about. Now, remember, I don't necessarily get this out and go through it in this way. This is just a template for you to get started. There's certain software programs that could automate some of these steps, such as a Google form, which I'll give you a couple of examples of those that we use as well. You might also not want something like this that's not dynamic and doesn't flow with you from client to client. You might want to use something like Asana or Trello or ClickUp to have a true project management tool that goes with you from each client to the next, and make sure that you have a catalyst for each one of these things every time you are onboarding a new client. With that being said, here are the things that I typically look for. And again, I'm going to show you a couple of examples here in a second. You need contact information. That might mean phone number. It might mean Voxer handle. It might mean email. What is their preferred communication? And it might be more than one. Do you need their address? Hint, you do, because at some point you might want to send them a little thank you. I think these things are really important. And when it's part of your onboarding, you just have that information up front and you are set up for success. Things like their birthday. Once they fill out the questionnaire, you learn these things, head on over to your Google Calendar or whatever you use to keep track of the days of the year and make sure that you have your birthday in there. Pro tip, make sure that you set birthdays as recurring annual events and presume that you're going to be working together for a long time and you're going to want that information year after year. You might want to collect their website, all of their social media handles. Again, this is going to depend on what you're doing for them as a virtual assistant. You might want to learn a little bit more about their target audience, their offers, any competitors. Again, this is going to depend on the work that you're doing. I first started freelancing as a social media manager before I even learned about the world of virtual assistants and online business management. And so for me, it was really important of who else are my clients watching that I can go hack and figure out who's doing things well and maybe things that we can learn. Your clients probably already know that information, and it's going to save you time by just asking them for it. Again, what are their goals? Not just what are their goals for you, but what are their goals in their business? Something that's really important to remember is why someone hires a virtual assistant in the first place. They do it because they want to save time and they want to save energy that they're currently maybe working on their own, or maybe their previous virtual assistant left them. And your goal is to open up their bandwidth to focus on other things. Now, for a newer business, typically that's for sales, but it might also be, maybe they've been driving themselves into the ground. For you to know what their goals are, now you can make sure that you're prioritizing your work in alignment with getting your client where they want to go. The happier your client is, the more likely they are to pay you for the long run. And then again, what is their preferred way to communicate? This is really important that you ask, and something that you revisit, because sometimes things change. Sometimes as a team grows and there's more people involved, you have to adapt and do things a little bit differently to make sure that it's still working. The next step would be to add to your CRM, your Excel tracker, maybe use something like Honeybooks or Wave, whatever it is, however you're going to invoice, however you track your projects and your clients in your own again, CRM or project management tool. Make sure that you have that information in there. If you don't know, CRM stands for customer relationship management. So again, wherever you're doing this, if you're just getting started, it might be an Excel sheet. If you are more advanced or you have some workflows and some automations built out in something like, again, Dubsado or whatever the case may be, make sure you get them added and tagged however is applicable for you. Okay, the next one is totally a maybe / nice to have. And the reason I say that is because the idea of a welcome letter or packet has gotten grossly ego-centered and not so much about the client. And the reason that I say that is because I've seen people using amazing websites and platforms like Canva to create 12-page onboarding documents. And when I see that, as someone who both has been a freelancer and also now hires freelancers, I get tired. So it's really important to remember that your job as a virtual assistant is to save your client time and energy. If you're sending them a 12-page onboarding packet, I can near guarantee you that they are either not reading it or they are annoyed about the time that it takes. It can be a quick handwritten note. It can be a thank you. It should be something that is helpful, but does not feel burdensome. More often than not, you're actually going to want to have a kickoff call, which we'll get to here in a second, rather than trying to give them some 12 pages of your boundaries and your hours and all kinds of stuff. That should be something you discuss. It's not going to feel warm and friendly and like they're excited to work with you when you're giving them like 12 pages of parameters about how to contact you when they've just decided to work with you from a possibly large pool of candidates. So keep in mind, tread lightly when I say send welcome packet. It should be a benefit to them, not a burden. Now, instead, what you can do, again, is mail them a welcome gift. This might be a $5 Starbucks gift card. It might be a handwritten note telling them how excited you are to get to help them grow their business and get to work with them and get to know them better. Remember, it's about the gesture. It's about making them feel seen and appreciated and like you have their back. It should not feel like they just enrolled in a university and now they've got, all this paperwork they have to deal with. Your job is to make their life easier. I get asked all the time in the Free Mama community, how people get access to all of their client stuff. And my favorite resource for doing that is LastPass. So, of course, as a virtual assistant, you're going to be inside of email programs, calendar programs, possibly email management software, probably the back end of websites, maybe even social media accounts. So, there's a lot of password sharing involved. And a really safe way to do that is on a platform like LastPass. Rather than actually sending the password, you just basically give them access that when you install the LastPass extension, like on your Chrome browser, for example, it's going to go ahead and pre-fill your client's information. There will be like a drop down. It's very easy to use. It's very user-friendly. And at this point in the online game, a lot of businesses are very familiar with it. Now, your entrepreneur client might not even know that this is available. So this is a great way for you to add value right out the gate and telling them how you can get passwords and for all the applicable programs that you're going to need access to. Now, you might be sitting there wondering, I don't even know what software programs I need access to. Totally cool if that's you. Go back to your onboarding questionnaire and put that in there. Say, what software programs are you currently using in your business? Now, all of a sudden, you have a checklist of ones that you can go through and tell them that you need via LastPass so that you can dive in and start being successful. Okay, last but not least, and I would say this is pretty much required regardless of the work you're doing as a freelancer, whether you're a bookkeeper, copywriter, social media manager, virtual assistant, web designer, or something in between, it is really essential that you start with a kickoff onboarding call. This is where you're done with the sales process. They've already decided to work with you. A lot of that preliminary chat is out of the way. This is where you actually roll up your sleeves and you have to make some decisions on certain things. So like we talked about, what's the communication process? How frequently do you need to touch base on either the progress of certain tasks, or if you're working long-term as a virtual assistant, is it daily check-ins? Is it a weekly touch point? How often do you need to be communicating? And what's the best way? For me and my team, I meet with most of my team members once a week on Zoom for anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour. It just depends on the role that they play and what's going on. All of the conversations in between take place on an app called Voxer, which is kind of like a walkie-talkie, and you can voice memo or you can text, and that's how we do quick back and forth. With that being said, my team also knows that if they need me to do something, not just listen to something or answer a question, but I have to actually go do something, they know that it needs to go into an email in my inbox or into Asana, which is our project management tool, because I'm going to forget about it. I listen to Voxer messages when I'm driving to the gym or picking my kids up from school. So this is a part of our communication process. It's not always perfect, and we go back and revisit it all the time to make sure it's still working, but make sure that you're initiating those conversations with your clients so that their needs are being met. Another part of that onboarding should be establishing goals together. What is their version of success for your role? Not just their personal goals in their business, but what will make them look at you and your work and go, oh my gosh, you are the best thing since sliced bread. If you don't know the answer to that and they haven't thought through the answer to that, you might be setting yourself up for some serious frustrations and hard conversations down the road. You will also want to set expectations of each other. This would be the appropriate time to talk about your work boundaries. When are you available? When are you not available? Again, hopefully some of this came out during your discovery call, because it would be really painful to find out after they've already paid their first invoice that you're never awake at the same time, for example. But this is where we can start to talk about our boundaries. We can make sure that everything is feeling in alignment in terms of, their expectations of success and what's actually realistic. Sometimes we have to bring our clients back down to earth a little bit in terms of, you can't have 45 launches 1 week from now when you're starting from scratch, for example. So this is where we really get to work on having those strong communication skills. And lastly, create a plan for moving forward. If you've made a communication plan, the next time you're going to speak to each other, what needs to happen between now and then? What are all of these steps on your onboarding process, or for that first project that they're handing over to you, or that first, daily or weekly assignment that you're going to be helping them with? What is that going to look like? Is there going to be an ongoing onboarding process? Meaning, is it something where you're going to need to work together 30 to 90 minutes every single day so that they can train you on certain things? Are there SOPs or standing operating procedures somewhere that they're going to give to you to set you up for success? Or is that something that you're going to be creating along the way? Really strong communication, over communicate, and document what you can, whether that's recording videos, keeping track of emails that you're sending, whatever the case may be, just to make sure that you guys are both protected and you're on the same page. Okay, I want to show you a couple of our onboarding things. This is for my my mastermind. So this is a little bit different than working with a virtual assistant client. But as you can see, I want them to tell me information. Where are you currently at in your business? Where do you want to be? What's holding you back from being there? Again, communication, send us all your links. Describe your ideal vacation. The reason I ask that is because we do events and retreats inside of this program. So if I know what people in my program are interested in, I'm not guessing what they want. Think through some of those things. I always ask for t-shirt size because we give a lot of swag. When's their birthday? Guess what? This information goes on my calendar. And then of course we have all that contact information that I mentioned above as well. Another intake form that we do is when I hire team members. So this is almost reverse engineering the entrepreneur or the virtual assistant to the entrepreneur. This is when we're hiring for any position. This is our free Mama Team new member intake form. And so you'll see a lot of the things we talked about. What's your LastPass email so that we can start sharing that information with you? What's your Voxer handle? Because that's how we communicate. What are your favorite snacks and treats? What's your Starbucks order, your favorite meal? Where do you like to get gift cards to? What's your love language? Meaning, how do you actually feel appreciated? Is it words of affirmation or is it gifts? It makes a really big difference in making sure that people are happy in working relationships as well as personal relationships. We ask about hobbies and books because we know that people are holistic. They are well-rounded. Their work is not their only life. And the more that we take time to actually get to know the people that we're working with, the better. Okay, before we wrap up this video, it bears repeating one more time. Remember why someone's hiring you and incorporate that into your entire onboarding process. A virtual assistant saves a business owner so much time and energy. You usually end up becoming their right-hand guy or gal. It's a really important job. You're not just a virtual assistant. You are a partner in your client's success. And the way you treat that onboarding process really sets the stage for the future of your relationship. How they're going to respect your boundaries, whether or not they're going to pay on time, how you perform in that initial few weeks of work based on how set up for success you were. And you can take control a lot of that. So hopefully today's video was helpful for you. If you learned something, I'd love to know. Let me know down in the comments below. Or if one of the questions that we use in an intake form was new for you and now you're going to add it to the process that you use whenever you onboard clients, I would love to know what's working for you. Thank you so much for tuning into today's video of Free Mama TV, and I will see you next time. I feel like I'm looking down. Hopefully it doesn't look like I'm looking down. Maybe that's what I need to see. Hang on. Like, I got tongue tied.